Hello. I am Anna Imagination, and I am going to be reading Dolor and Shadow, book one of my Sage Cycle series. This is a book I started in 2006 is when I started writing this. And I have not picked up this book in many years. Um, This was written by my alters. I had multiple personality at the time when I wrote this. I had no idea that I had multiple personality. Bergen and Kalan are were two of my alters. They are very much I'm integrated now, but they are actually characters in my series, and I had no idea at the time that this is where multiple personality gets to be really interesting. You have multiple personality, dissociative identity disorder, but when you merge these characters and these parts of you when you're a writer, when you're a creator of any kind, your alters end up taking over as creators also, depending upon the alter's personality. So I had some alters that were very much um, I had some alters that were very much creatives and others that were not. And so my alters that were creatives ended up writing the book. I myself was actually I'm the core, and I was um, in my subconscious mind at the time. So this will be the first time I sit down and I actually read the book and get this started. And I am going to be doing an analysis afterward where I reflect on the psychology and the philosophy, or I'm sorry, the spirituality inside the book and how that implemented it. So, very eager about this. That's going to be the follow up video after this reading. During the reading itself, it's going to be I am Shakespearean trained. I am very much theatrical. I'm an actress, so this will be the first time that I actually get to also nurture the side of me and bring me back out into my theater side and turn this into a stage. So this is also very therapeutic and healing for me while I nurture and bring out this side of me. So it's a massive win-win, win-win, win-win-win. So while I'm reading to you, that healing is going on inside of my subconscious so that I can bring myself back out. I can shrink my fear, adapt to the getting used to being on the stage again, and then I can follow it up with the psychology and the spirituality of what I've actually created here. And it's also going to allow me to see how my alters were thinking in 2006 to 2015 prior to my therapy. So this is very, on a psychological bit, this is very exciting for me. So thank you so much for joining me. I'm probably not going to be doing this intro. No, I'm not. On the beginning of every chapter, what I'm going to do instead is just dive right into the books, into the chapters in the future. So this is Dolor and Shadow, book one of the Sage Cycle. It is available on Amazon. You are more than welcome to grab the buy link if you want to grab your own copy and read ahead. If you love epic fantasy, dragons, Old Norse, this is a sister book to Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. And what I mean by that is we all three, Tolkien, whatever that guy's name is, George Martin, and then myself, all use the exact same resources, the prose edda, to write these books. So to write all of our books. So that's what I mean by it's a sister book, as in the same resources were used as Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. So this is actually a historical alternative fiction of epic fantasy. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. And this is the prologue that we're going to be doing. A map is available. I'm going to be posting. I'll probably be posting the map. I don't know yet how I'm going to do that. I might be able to. I'm probably going to throw it out on my website, or I'll figure it out. If you want the map, let me know. Prologue. Dolor and Shadow, the Sage Cycle, book one. How fare the gods? How fare the elves? All Jotunheim groans. The gods are at council. Loud roar the dwarves by the doors of stone, the masters of the rocks. Would you know yet more? The Poetic Edda, 48th stanza. Think back to the oldest era your mind can fathom, back beyond everything we can remember, when gods were still men who had not yet lived the deeds that would deify them. Gudrun's aged gold eyes peered from behind her curtain of long silver hair. Think back before the time when the Asir and the Vanir were still men who had settled here on ancient earth, ages before their war. Back when the earth was new? Colin asked, looking up from the vellum scroll before her on the table. The tips of her tapered ears poked through the brown hair she had tied back to avoid the candle's flames. Was it? Shadows flickered over Gudrun's face, and shelves full of jarred things. All sorts of unusual jars of powders and exotic roots had been crammed into every available corner. Dried herbs hung from the crossbeams. The light from the candle and small earth fire mingled and added a heavy thickness to the roof that smelled of a boiled heather and sage. The earth was still very old by the time the gods found it, Gudrun said. By then it was already ancient soil which stirred beneath their feet. Can you see it, Kalan? The girl closed her eyes, an iridescent blue like the lapis stone, and thought back to the earliest memory she could recall, back before the Great Migration, when the gods lived in the southern deserts and the land of rivers, back before the Great War between the Asir and the Vanir. I can, Colin said. The old woman kept the dry sternness in her voice. These are the antiquated stories that predate the empires of men. We have studied the Vanir and their ways, their medicine and herbs. Now, think of the gods of our gods, the gods so old that we have forgotten, the gods our gods once taught to their young. And think of their ancient stories and their myths, the legends they once revered before they themselves became myth. And think of everything now lost to time. Kala nodded. I see it. The Seidr is older still, Gudrun said, like veins that flowed from the great gap, spreading through all elements of the earth, stretching out, threading itself into the waters, the air, and earth. Colin opened her eyes as she drew the connection to the tri-corner knot and closed in a circle hanging from the chain on her neck. Gudrun smiled, confirming that Colin's conclusion was correct. Your mother's pendant, she said, Natranatha. The three united. The Seidr fused itself to the elements until it lost itself inside the earth, becoming a part of it, flowing with the waters, churning with the soils, and riding on the wind through the air. The Seidr is still there, sleeping, waiting for us to remember. Colin shifted forward in her seat. When the Vanir found the Seidr, they recognized it. In secret, they honed it and mastered it. They hoarded it, keeping it concealed from the Asir. Sadness hovered in Gudrun's tone. Afraid the Asir would learn of their treasure and exceed them in power, the Vanir refused to divulge their secret. What happened to the Vanir? Colin asked. Gudrun visibly fought back the bitter sting of tears. They died. Her voice was low, doomed to be forgotten, and living only within the ancient stories, now nearly extinct. Colin bit the corner of her lip, as if biting back a question. Deep within the earth, beyond the sea to the west, they met their end. The old woman continued. Some say they perished far beyond the westernmost reaches of the world, where the beginning formed. There where the Seidr emerged from the life source and fused to the elements and life itself. The Seidr now resides dormant in all of us. However, for most of us, it sleeps, available for the host to use, but never awakened, its keeper unaware of its presence. But don't think its power is lost, Gudrun said. Even dormant seed ripped from its host will destroy the lifeline that has formed around it. It lies sleeping within every man born to Midgard, just as the races of men have it. We elves have it. Elves? Colin repeated. Elfar, Gudrun clarified, forgetting the word was foreign beyond the Ocean Isle, where she had lived for the past 300 years. The Dvargar, the Svaltafar, even the Liasafar. They have it, Colin interrupted. King Tryggve. Gudrun nodded. King Tryggve. And King Olaf. The name of her father sharpened Colin's attention. Father has it, Gudrun continued, not daring to encourage the princess's interruptions. as do the reindeer that migrate across the valleys of King Ram in the north, and the elk birds that fly across the southern realms of King Garagdi, the sea worms that swim, and the pines that grow tall in these lands. However, among us all, men and the three races of the Alfar, only a rare handful are still aware of its existence. Of those precious few, only some can waken it. Fewer still can wield it. After concluding her lecture, Gudrun spoke faster, more sternly, leaving behind the mysticism of the storyteller. To wield the seed is to pull on the lifeline that has formed within the confines of your center. To master the seed is to pull on the threads that have woven themselves within the elements. Find it! As if suddenly aware of the stuffy room, Colin narrowed her eyes to better see the say that was somewhere, somehow, there suspended in the air. This time, Gudrun's smile stretched across her wrinkled face. Start small, she said. The say that around us has not conformed to the order of a path and goes where the elements take it. Try to find the Saith within you, at your center. That is where it sleeps. That Saith will know you and be the first to obey you. Slouching, Colin nodded and closed her eyes, then changed her attention to the center of her body. Once you master your own Saith, you can reach out to the Saith in others. It won't be as willing to obey as your own, but it too has adapted to the confines of a living being. Colin opened her eyes, eager to collect the knowledge that always seemed to pour out of Gudrun. Is it within the fire you summon? The old Sikona shook her head. Fire is not an element. It's a reaction, like when the cook blends stews or when I mix spells. Like bubbling water or brewed tea? Exactly, Gudrun said. Fire is only present when other actions bring it out, whereas soil, wind, and water are always there, constants, maintaining a permanent state that defines the Saith. As she listed each element, Gudrun pointed to each point of the pendant hanging from Kalan's neck. As she finished, she traced her finger around the circle, enveloping the knot. The elements don't require fuel. However, Saith is living. It is life form made of pure energy. Compress enough Saith, and it will release heat. Compress it more, and it will become hot enough to produce flame. And hotter still produces your lightning, Colin grinned. Exactly.